You sent the last text, and now crickets. The conversation, which was a steady rhythm in your day, has just stopped. And in that silence, your mind starts racing. Every dating coach, every forum, every piece of advice you've ever heard seems to scream one thing. Keep going, text again, call. Show her you're still interested. Don't let her forget you exist. You've been taught to believe that pursuit is the engine of attraction, and if you stop pedaling, you'll be left behind. But what if the most powerful, most revealing move you can make is to do nothing at all? So you decided to try it. You went silent. Not as a game, not as a trick, but as an experiment. You stopped talking to her, maybe even hoping your absence would make her heart grow fonder. But her reaction or lack thereof has thrown you for a loop. Her silence feels different from yours. It feels loaded. It feels like a test. And suddenly, you realize you're in the middle of something you weren't prepared for. This isn't about who texts first. It's about understanding what silence really says and what her response reveals about her genuine interest, her emotional maturity, and the very foundation of the connection you thought you had. So forget what you think you know about the chase. We're about to decode what's really happening in her mind when you stop talking to her. And the truth is far more complex and way more useful than a simple game of cat and mouse. Let's dive in. Sign 1. Why constant chasing can lower your value. Before we get into her reactions, we have to break down the myth you've been sold your whole life. The idea that a man's value is proven by how hard he chases. Society, movies, and even well-meaning advice have taught you that to win a woman's affection, you have to be ever present, constantly starting the conversation, and always proving your interest. You're told to be the planner, the one who pushes things forward. And so you do. You double text. You call when she doesn't respond. You fill every silence with a question or a meme, terrified that if you stop, she'll just drift away. But let's look at this from a psychological angle. The principle of scarcity is a basic concept that says people place a higher value on things that are less available. When you are always available, always the one pushing, you accidentally send a signal that your time and attention aren't scarce resources. While this comes from a place of genuine interest, it can create a dynamic where your presence is just taken for granted. It becomes expected, not appreciated. The spark of curiosity can get smothered by a flood of predictability. Think of it as a pattern interrupt. When your texts are a constant, predictable stream, they become background noise. But when you intentionally create space, when you go silent, you break that pattern. Her brain, which got used to your consistent messages, suddenly registers a change. The absence of your text becomes more noticeable than their presence ever was. Now, this isn't about playing hard to get. Research shows that while scarcity games can create a quick spark, relationships built on them usually don't last because they kill trust. Instead, this is about re-establishing the value of your attention by showing it's not something you give away to just anyone, it's a resource you choose to share, not something she's entitled to. Constantly chasing also forces you into a role where you're always seeking her approval. Your actions become less about connecting and more about getting a specific response. You're texting to get a text back. Your self-worth gets tied to how she replies. That's a terrible position to be in. It puts your emotional state entirely in her hands. When she's responsive, you're up. When she's distant, you're anxious. The truth that centered men understand is that their worth is built in. It's not handed to them by a woman's attention. By pulling back and being willing to let the silence sit, you're not just trying to influence her, you're proving to yourself that you are fine without her validation. You have a life, you have priorities, you have a sense of self that doesn't depend on her next text. This shift from a pursuer to an observer is the first step. It changes the whole dynamic, not because it's a clever tactic, but because it's a real display of self-respect. It says louder than any words that you're not afraid of losing her, because you're not afraid of being with yourself. Sign 2. This isn't the silent treatment. Okay, first things first. We have to draw a bright line between what we're talking about and the toxic silent treatment. The silent treatment is a manipulative and punishing act. It's when you intentionally ignore someone to control, hurt, or punish them. Research overwhelmingly shows this behavior is incredibly damaging to relationships, destroying trust, and causing emotional pain that literally activates the same parts of the brain as physical pain. What we're exploring here is completely different. This isn't about punishing her, it's about creating observational space. This is a conscious temporary pause in your initiation of contact. The goal isn't to cause pain, it's to gain clarity. When you're the one always driving the conversation, you can't tell if her replies are genuine interest or just a polite reaction to your effort. You're always acting and she's always reacting. You never get to see what she does in a vacuum. Creating observational space means you stop sending out signals so you can finally get a chance to receive one. You're stepping back from your role as the initiator to see what happens next. Does she step up? Does she let the connection die? Does she get anxious or angry? Does she even notice? Her response, whatever it is invaluable data. It's a more honest look at her true feelings than 1,000 conversations where you did all the work. This reframe is critical for your own mindset. If you see your silence as a weapon, you'll be anxiously waiting for it to hit, focused only on her reaction. That's still a weak position. But if you see your silence as a diagnostic tool, you become a calm observer collecting information. You aren't invested in what she does. You're just interested in seeing it. This sense of non-attachment protects your own emotional state and keeps you centered no matter how she behaves. This isn't about ghosting, especially in an established relationship where you should just communicate directly that you need space. This is mainly for the early stages of dating, where the dynamic is still being set and you feel like you're putting in most of the effort. It's a strategic pause to answer one question. Is the energy here reciprocal? Sign 3. When silence is the wrong move. This strategy is a diagnostic tool, not a universal fix. Applying it in the wrong context is like using a scalpel as a hammer. It's destructive and shows a lack of skill. So let's be crystal clear about when pulling back is the wrong move. First, never use this in a committed long-term relationship. In a partnership, ceasing communication without explanation isn't strategic, it's a breach of trust. If you need space from your partner, the mature, masculine path is to communicate that directly. Say, I need some time to process things, but I want to work through this. Let's talk tomorrow. That's taking space. Going quiet with no warning is the silent treatment, and it's a form of emotional punishment. Second, this isn't a tool for conflict resolution. If you have a disagreement or an argument, disappearing only escalates the problem. It leaves the other person feeling abandoned and makes resolution impossible. Healthy conflict requires communication, even if it's just to schedule a time to talk when heads are cooler. Withdrawing completely in the face of a problem isn't a show of strength. It's a show of avoidance. Finally, understand the context. This approach is designed for the ambiguous early stages of dating, where you suspect you're the only one putting in the effort. If you've only been on one date and she's slow to reply, she might just be busy or not that interested. Using this strategy then is just not texting. But if you have children together, work together, or have deep mutual commitments, a no-contact approach is often impractical and damaging. In those cases, you must rely on clear, direct boundaries. This tool is for clarity, not chaos. Use it wisely. Sign 4. Conquering your own anxiety. Once you create that space, the first person you'll have to confront is yourself. The silence can be deafening, and your mind can become your own worst enemy. That void where her text used to be can fill with a storm of anxiety, doubt, and the overwhelming temptation to just send a "Hey, what's up?" text to break the tension. This is the inner work. Your anxiety flares because your self-worth has become tied to her validation. A quick reply makes you feel valued. Silence makes you feel rejected. Recognizing this is the first step to taking your power back. Your worth is not determined by her notification bubble. The goal is to get to a place where you are okay with any outcome, because your emotional stability doesn't depend on it. So, how do you manage it? You have to consciously shift your focus. Instead of checking your phone every 5 minutes, put it on silent and get busy with your own life. Hit the gym. Dive into that project at work. Call a friend you haven't spoken to in weeks. Read a book. Each time you resist the urge to text, you're building emotional discipline. You're teaching your brain that you are the source of your own security, not her responses. Journaling can be a powerful tool here. Write down what you're feeling. Ask yourself, why do I need her to text me back so badly? What am I afraid will happen if she doesn't? Often, putting these fears on paper exposes how irrational they are. You are not just waiting for her. You are actively building a stronger, more centered version of yourself. This is the ultimate win, because it serves you in every area of your life long after this one situation is resolved. Sign 5. What her silence really means. When you create this space, Her reaction won't be simple. The old advice that she'll instantly start chasing you is a huge oversimplification. Her reaction will be a unique mix of her personality, her actual interest in you, her communication style, and her attachment patterns. You're about to see a raw reflection of her internal world. Let's break down what you're most likely to see. One of the most common and most misunderstood reactions is that she goes silent too. You stop texting, she stops texting, and the silence gets deafening. The immediate conclusion is often, she doesn't care. But this isn't always true. Her silence isn't always indifference. Sometimes it's confusion, hurt, or self-protection. From her perspective, your sudden quiet can feel like rejection. For many people, a break in connection triggers anxiety and insecurity. Her mind might be spiraling. What did I do wrong? Is he mad at me? Did I misread everything? In response, she might withdraw as a defense mechanism. She feels you pull away, so she pulls away. It's an instinctive act of self-preservation. Reaching out feels vulnerable. And if she thinks you're already gone, getting rejected would be even more painful. So she does nothing to protect herself. However, it's just as likely that her silence means exactly what it looks like. She's not that interested, or her interest was low to begin with. In the world of modern dating, people often have multiple conversations going at once. When one goes quiet, they simply shift their focus to another. So before you decide her silence means she secretly cares, remember that it could just as easily mean she's moved on. After a few days of silence, you might get a very low investment message. It won't be a direct question. Instead, it'll be something ambiguous, like a reaction to your Instagram story, a generic, "Hey stranger," or a random meme. This is her testing the waters. She's casting out a small, low-risk line to see if you'll bite. A direct, "I miss you, is everything okay?" carries the risk of rejection, but sending a meme is safe. If you don't respond, she can tell herself it was no big deal. If you do respond, she gets her answer, you're still open to talking. This is a delicate balance between her curiosity and her ego. She wants to know where she stands, but she doesn't want to look needy. She might also suddenly start posting more on social media, stories of her out with friends looking great, or sharing cryptic song lyrics. A cynical view would call this an attempt to make you jealous. And sometimes it is. But it could also be her genuinely trying to boost her own self-esteem after feeling the sting of your perceived rejection. It might be a test for you, but it could just as easily be a balm for her own ego. Sometimes the reaction isn't subtle at all. It's a raw emotional display. She might send an angry or passive-aggressive text, accusing you of playing games or being immature. While your first instinct might be to pull back from this negativity, it's often one of the strongest signs of genuine emotional investment. Indifference is quiet. Indifference moves on. A strong emotional reaction, even a negative one, signals that your absence had a real impact on her. Your silence didn't just go unnoticed, it caused her distress. Often, the anger is a mask for more vulnerable feelings of hurt or confusion. It feels safer to be angry at you for ghosting than it does to admit, your silence hurt my feelings. While it's not a healthy way for her to communicate, it's a clear sign that the connection matters to her. A woman who is genuinely uninterested won't waste the emotional energy to get mad at you. She'll just forget you. And of course, there's always the possibility that your silence will be met with permanent silence. She doesn't reach out, she doesn't post anything passive-aggressive, she just moves on. This is, without a doubt, the toughest outcome for the ego to handle, but it is also the clearest piece of data you can get. In this scenario, your silence worked perfectly as a diagnostic tool. It revealed that her interest was either very low or that you were the one carrying the entire weight of the interaction. When you stopped providing the energy, the whole thing collapsed. Maybe she was talking to other people, or maybe she just enjoyed the attention but never saw it going anywhere serious. While this can feel like rejection, it's actually a gift. It's the gift of clarity. It saves you weeks or months of chasing someone who isn't genuinely into you. A man who understands his own value doesn't get bitter here. He accepts the information with grace, knowing that not every connection is meant to be. Her silence isn't a judgment on your worth, it's just a statement about your compatibility. Sign 6. Is it a test of strength or a sign of disinterest? As you observe her reaction, you need to make a critical distinction. Is she testing your strength, or is she showing you she's not interested? A test, however clumsy, is a sign of engagement. Disinterest is a sign of disconnection. A test often involves some form of effort, even if it seems negative or slight. This could be the low-effort probe, pattern 2, or even the emotional outburst, pattern 3. A woman will rarely test a man she has zero interest in. She might delay her text to see if you get needy, talk about other guys to gauge your confidence, or cancel plans to see how you react. The key is that she is still interacting. Her actions are designed to get a reaction from you, to see what you're made of. It's a form of data collection on her end. True disinterest, on the other hand, is defined by absence. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being genuinely hard to reach. The signs are consistent and passive. Her replies, if they come, are short, take forever, and ask no questions back. There's no playful teasing or emotional charge. There's just nothing. She won't offer alternative dates if she cancels. She's not trying to make you jealous on social media. She's just living her life. A woman who is interested but busy will make time for you. A woman who uses being busy as an excuse will not. Think of it this way. A test is an active challenge, while disinterest is a passive void. A test asks a question, even if it's disguised. Disinterest has no questions left to ask. Learning to tell the difference is crucial. One invites you to demonstrate your value with a calm, centered response. The other is a clear signal to gracefully accept the information and move on. Sign 7. The path of a centered man. Observing her reaction is only half the battle. The other, more important half, is how you respond. Your reaction to her reaction is the ultimate test of your self-worth. Forget the advice to play power games. A truly centered man operates from a place of warmth, strength, and integrity. The goal is to remain non-reactive, which doesn't mean being cold. It means not letting her behavior dictate your emotional state. Here's how to handle each pattern. If she responds with silence, your best move is to do nothing. Don't chase her. By letting the silence be, you respect her space or you accept her lack of interest. You put your focus back on your work, your hobbies, your life. If she's interested, the silence will eventually compel her to reach out more directly. If she's not, you've already started moving on. If she reaches out with a low-effort probe, this is where most guys mess up. They're so relieved to hear from her that they immediately flood her with attention, undoing all the good the space created. The right response is to be warm and positive, but don't be overeager. Match her energy. If she sends a low-effort, hey, you can reply a few hours later with a simple, hey, what's up? You're acknowledging her, but you're inviting her to put in more effort. Don't immediately ask her out. Let her escalate the energy. If she has an emotional outburst, your instinct might be to get defensive or apologize. Both are wrong. Getting defensive starts a fight. Apologizing when you did nothing wrong signals weakness. The strongest response is to calmly acknowledge her feelings without accepting blame. Something like, it seems like my silence upset you. That wasn't my intention, is powerful. It validates her emotion. I see you are upset. Without validating the idea that you're the villain, it shows strength and puts the ball in her court to communicate more maturely. Ultimately, the goal isn't to stay in this game forever. Healthy relationships are built on open communication, not strategic silence. If and when she does reach out with clear, genuine intent, hey, I was wondering why I haven't heard from you and I miss talking, that's your cue to re-engage with warmth and honesty. At that point, you can say, I felt like I was doing most of the initiating, so I stepped back to see where we stood. But I've missed talking to you too. This is honest, confident, and sets the stage for a healthier, more balanced dynamic. These patterns are a guide, but every situation is unique. The most important lessons here are often the ones you learn about yourself. So, take a moment and drop a comment below. What have you noticed when you've created space? What does the silence teach you about your own need for validation? Your experience could be a huge help to someone else going through the same thing. Stepping back isn't a magic trick to make a woman fall for you. It's a powerful tool for revelation. It's a mirror you hold up, not just to her, but to the connection itself. Her reaction gives you honest feedback about her interest, maturity, and ability to be a partner. It cuts through all the noise and polite fiction. But more importantly, your ability to handle that silence, to sit with the unknown, to observe without overreacting, and to be okay with any outcome, that's the true measure of your own growth. It's the journey from needing someone's approval to having your own internal security. A woman's reaction to your silence will show you who she is, but your reaction to her reaction will show you who you are. The goal isn't just to get the girl, it's to become the kind of man who knows his worth without needing anyone else to prove it. A man who is willing to lose what isn't truly his to make space for what is. And that centered confidence is more attractive than any text you could ever send. See you in the next video.